Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? As we inch closer to the NFL draft, I think we're kind of attacking this thing at all angles with respect to the Saints. And I think there's sort of a consensus belief that the Saints are, that their biggest need is offensive tackle, and that they're going to address that at 14. It was interesting today. There was a piece at ESPN.com looking at teams that could potentially draft multiple players at the same position. And obviously with the Saints, it's offensive tackle that we look at. And Jordan Reed looked at the Saints and kind of laid out a scenario where they could potentially take multiple tackles. That you could have one at 14, but then a pick later in the draft. He's listed Patrick Paul from Houston, Kieran Amagadija. Let's go with that. From Yale, Blake Fisher out of Notre Dame, day 2 or 3 prospects that the Saints could pull the trigger on later in the draft. And I don't, it would stand to reason that on the offensive line, if you were going to take multiple players at the same position, really at any position, it would be somewhat of an oddity or an outlier. But the Saints have actually done this, I don't want to say commonly, but it's been more common than you might think. The last time they did it, took 2 offensive linemen in the same draft, was 2018. So it's been a little while, but 2018 was the last time they did it. And they didn't exactly hit. They took Rick Leonard in round 4 out of Florida State, and he was a total bust. And then they took Will Clapp in round 7, and Clapp made the team, and he's still in the league. So you went 1 of 2 there. Before that, you have to go back to 2012. And this was another atrocious draft. Your entire draft in 2012 was Akeem Hicks, Nick Toon, Corey White, Andrew Tiller, and Marcel Jones. Exactly. But 2 of those players, Corey White and Andrew Tiller, were offensive linemen that you clearly missed on those. In 2010, you took Charles Brown in round 2 and Matt Tennant in round 5, and that was one of the more disappointing years because Charles Brown was a super athletic offensive tackle out of Southern Cal that felt like a steal in round 2, in the back part of round 2, and you felt like you got a franchise left tackle when you made the pick, and he was a guy that just couldn't play. Mike Detillier affectionately and sort of jokingly referred to him as Charlie Brown his entire career. He was that bad. And then Matt Tennant, who the Saints got in round 5, there was a lot of talk that Matt Tennant might have been the best center in that draft. Now, with the way the draft pay scale has changed, you see interior offensive linemen going more high in the draft now. It wasn't exactly the case then. When Matt Tennant got picked back in 2010, he was a 5th-round pick out of Boston College, and it didn't work out for him in the NFL, but he was one of the best centers in that year's draft, so you kind of whiffed on both of those guys. But they've done it before. 2007 was a year where they went Andy Alleman, Jermon Bushrod. You split there. And 2006 is probably the year that was the quintessential year you'd point to and say, that's what you hope for if you're going to draft multiple guys at the same position. In 2006, they took Jari Evans in round 4, and they took Zach Strief in round 7. And both of those guys became starters and stalwarts for you. Jari Evans has a great shot to be a Hall of Famer. He's been a Hall of Fame finalist. And Zach Strief became a starter for you at right tackle for nearly a decade and was a starter on your Super Bowl team. So I am not opposed in any way to the Saints making multiple picks on the offensive line this year, because if nothing else, what we've seen is in years where they've drafted multiple linemen in the same draft, what's happened more often than not is they hit on at least one of them. The Charles Brown, Matt Tennant year where you go double whiff is a bummer. More likely what you see is like the Andy Alleman, Jermon Bushrod. You whiffed on Alleman, but you knocked it out the park with Bushrod. And if you get really lucky, maybe it's like what happened in 2006 when you had Evans and Strief. But either way, when you look at this offensive line, you could be replacing both tackles and potentially a guard. Like, you could have 3 starting spots in your offensive line up for grabs. So, yeah, go get 2 young players and see if you can make it work. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.